Welcome back to a new video. I would like to thank all of you for all your comments, for all your feedback, for all your stories as well. I plan to have a solid audience, a solid family in this channel. So any feedback you have, anything you want to say, you can write it in the comments and I will definitely look it up. Without further ado, you can check the timestamps to see if you have any story you would want to listen to first. Have fun, enjoy your time. My name is Arthur, and for 15 years I was a ghost made of 360 pounds of flesh. Being obese is strange. It's a paradoxical state of existence. You occupy more physical space than anyone else in the room, yet you are completely invisible. People don't look at you, they look through you, or they look away. I became an expert in the art of avoidance. I knew which subway seats were precisely 18 inches wide. I knew which restaurants had fixed booths that would pinch my midsection, and which had movable chairs that would groan under my weight. I navigated the world like a submarine, silent and consistently and constantly calculating the pressure from the outside. The world treats the obese as a character flaw made manifest. They assume you are lazy, unintelligent, and lacking any moral power. What does obesity have to do with power? Moral power. I lived in that skin for so long, I believed the world was just naturally cold. I didn't realize it was selectively cold. The transformation wasn't a montage. It wasn't a 90-second clip with upbeat music. It was a clinical, agonizing deconstruction of my former self. I spent 18 months in a state of constant, low-level war with my own biology. I learned the language of endocrinology, leptin, and ghrelin. The insulin spike. I watched as my body slowly began to cannibalize its own storage. It felt like shedding armor that I hadn't realized I was wearing. As the pounds dropped, the phantom weight remained. Even at 200 pounds, I still turned my shoulders to walk through wide doors. I still scanned rooms for the sturdiest chair. You can change the hardware, but your brain, it remembers being a target. Which takes much longer to update. The realization hit me at a grocery store I had frequented for a decade. For years, the cashiers were perfunctory. They never made eye contact. They would slide my groceries, often high-calorie comfort foods. I used to hide my sadness across the scanner with a subtle wince. When I walked in at 180 pounds, wearing a slim-fit navy jacket, the world shifted. The same cashier, Alice, who had ignored me for 10 years, looked up, smiled. She engaged in social lubrication, small talk about the weather, a joke about the line. I stood there, reeling. I wasn't a better person. I hadn't suddenly become more charismatic. I was simply smaller. The social filter had been removed, and I was suddenly allowed to participate in the human race. I went home and felt a surge of pure, dark resentment. The world wasn't polite, it was just biased. The most telling change happened at work. I'm a data architect. I handle logical things, structural things, in any phase. In my heavy phase, I was the guy in the background. During presentations, client would look at my thinner junior associates for the answers, assuming my physical look meant I was mentally slow. 3 months ago, I met my former boss, Jonathan, for coffee. He had fired me years ago, citing quote-unquote cultural fit. He didn't recognize me. He spent an hour telling me how much he valued my presentation and the look of a winner. How much he valued presentation and the look of a winner. He tried to recruit me. I realized then that meritocracy is a lie we tell ourselves. The world is a series of aesthetic checkpoints. I declined his offer with a laugh that felt like a sharp blade. I wasn't going back to a world that only valued me when I met its specifications. You'd think being thin makes you love people more. It's the opposite. It makes you realize how shallow everyone is. I see the performance art of social interaction now. I see the way women look at me in bars. Eyes that would have skated over me 2 years ago. I see the way men offer me a seat at the table. It's all fake. It's all predicated on the fact that I no longer offend their eyes. I've become a misanthrope. I miss the honesty of being hated for my size. At least then, I knew who the a-holes were. Now, everyone is an a-hole. They're just being nice to me because I'm wearing a costume that fits their narrative. I live in a small town now. I work remotely. I don't go to places where presentation matters. I spend my time building furniture. Wood doesn't care about your BMI. A dovetail joint either fits or it doesn't. It's the only place I found true integrity. I'm 180 pounds, but I'm still the 360-pound man in my head. I'm a spy in the land of the thin. I've seen behind the curtain, and I know the secret. The world doesn't want your soul. It just wants you to fit in the seat. This story is for anyone who ever felt invisible. It's a warning to those who think weight loss is a cure for their life. It cures the body, but it poisons the mind. With the realization of how transactional human kindness truly is. The world is just a book of specifications, and I'm the man who broke the scale just to see the cracks in the foundation. First of all, thank you so much for sharing this story with us. You are right about most of the things you said, where people actually don't look at you, they look through you. I also agree with the fact that your brain doesn't truly look at you as someone who has changed. You'll always have the phantom weight. Not just the weight, even if you look at yourself in the mirror, when you buy clothes, you might think that you need to buy something that is 5XL, even though you only need like XL or maybe XXL. Your brain does not have the ability to register that. But I would change one thing about what you said. You said that to those who think that weight loss is a cure for their life, it cures the body but it poisons the mind. Not necessarily. It just takes time, because when you live your entire life, how old were you again? Did you tell me your age? When you've been living like for decades, you haven't told me your age. But you said for 16 years, so that's a long time. That's a decade and a half. Your brain is not going to be able to forget a decade and a half in just a year or two. So it takes time, but in my opinion, it is a cure for the mind and for the body. Thank you so much. I wish you nothing but success in your life. Am I the a-hole for sabotaging my mother-in-law's cooking at my own wedding? This is gonna be interesting. My 28F mother-in-law, 55F, is a professional amateur chef. What does that mean, professional amateur? Anyway, she insists on making one dish every family event. For my wedding, she insisted on making her famous ultra spicy shrimp cocktail. I have a severe shellfish allergy, which she knows, but she claims it's for the guests, not you. I told her if she brought it, I would ensure it was clearly labeled. She agreed at the reception. She agreed. At the reception, I saw the tray. There were no labels. I saw my younger cousin, who also has an allergy, reaching for it. In panic, I grabbed a bottle of nail polish remover I had in my bag and squirted it over the tray while she was talking to my mom. When people started eating, they all spat it out, complaining it tasted like poison. My mother-in-law was humiliated and has been crying for 3 days. Damn, that's a lot. It's a long time. Saying I ruined her reputation in front of the whole family just because I'm jealous of her cooking. My husband says I should have just asked the servers to move it, but I was in a rush. So let's talk about the verdict here. Honestly, both of you are the a-hole, and I'll explain it. So, let's start with your mother-in-law. So she agreed to put labels on the shrimp cocktail, or this secret recipe of hers. But she didn't do that. And that's dangerous because when someone has a severe allergy towards seafood or shrimps or anything really, there's a high chance they might go into an anaphylactic attack. An anaphylactic attack or an anaphylactic shock is basically a severe allergic reaction that might, and usually does, it causes a constriction of the throat muscles. So basically you'll choke to death. It's severe. If you don't have an EpiPen, which is used for these allergic reactions or these allergies, or if you don't have, or you're not in a place where ambulances can reach fast, someone might die, quite literally. So she didn't label it. So she is the a-hole here. You, on the other hand, you literally sprayed a poison, nail polish remover. You didn't have to go above and beyond to do that. You could have just asked the servers to remove it, or put it in a plastic bag and say they loved it, they ate it. Yeah, honestly, in my opinion, both of you. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding using the money our grandfather left specifically to me? My 32M sister, 29F. This is so complicated, man. Just say I, 32M, my sister, 29F. Is getting married. Our grandfather passed away 3 years ago. In his will, he left me 150,000 because I spent every weekend of my teenage years and my 20s helping him run his farm, while my sister moved across the country and barely called him. He left her 5,000 and his old Mustang. My sister wants $60,000. Well, she wants a $60,000 fairy tale wedding. My parents are retired and can't afford it. They told They told her she should ask me for the money. When she asked, I said no. I told her I'm using that money as a down payment on a house and for my future children's college fund. Now my entire family is calling me a greedy hoarder and saying that grandfather would be ashamed that I'm letting my only sister cry over her budget while I sit on a pile of cash I didn't earn. They're threatening to boycott my housewarming party. What's a housewarming party? I don't know that. Am I the asshole here? Am I the a-hole? Sorry. I don't like cussing, really. Listen, man. Your grandfather gave you the money, so legally it's yours. This is your money now. Your sister wants a $60,000, by the way, is a lot of money. Like, for my case here, it's a life-changing amount of money. And for someone to ask for 60,000 just for a couple of days, which is a wedding, that is ridiculous, honestly. Yeah, you're not the a-hole here. Sorry about that. Your parents calling you a greedy hoarder, that's ridiculous, man. Okay. This story here is sent to me by Ryan. Okay. Let's see, Ryan. I-35M. Thank you so much for not complicating it. I-35M travel a lot for work. I use my miles to upgrade to first class whenever possible because I'm 6'5", and economy is physically painful for me. Last week, I settled into my seat. A woman approached me and asked if I'd switch to another seat, a middle seat in the back, so she could sit next to her 14-year-old son. I politely declined, explaining I had specifically booked for the legroom. She got livid. She started loud talking to the flight attendant about how men these days have no chivalry and how her son has anxiety. The kid looked fine. He was already wearing noise-cancelling headphones and playing a Nintendo Switch. The flight attendant told her she couldn't force me to move. Why the hell would she even force you to move? This is your seat. She spent the first hour of the flight glaring at the back of my head from the row behind me. When I got off the plane, she called me an entitled prick. Under her breath. I told my girlfriend about it. She thinks I should have just moved to be the bigger person. Am I the a-hole? First of all, you are the bigger person. You're 6'5". That's number one. Number two, if you paid for something, if I paid for an entire hotel suite, I don't want to expect someone to be sleeping in some corner here just because I have so much space. I paid for it with my money, with my hard-earned cash. If you want to sit with your son or whoever you want, prepare for it beforehand. Pay money. Don't expect me to give you things that are not yours. You're not the a-hole, she is. She's probably a Karen, to be honest. Okay, this story is from... No, that's a weird name, I'm not going to say it. I-30F bring high-end lunches to work. Sushi, steak, organic salads. Someone had been stealing my food from the office fridge for weeks. I finally put a tracker. You know those air tags they sell at Apple stores? I put one of them inside a dummy lunch bag and caught my co-worker eating my $30 poke bowl in the break room. Guys, what's a poke bowl? Never heard of that. Poke bowl? Okay. Sounds like something seafood. I didn't just yell at her, I went straight to HR. Wow. With the evidence. Sarah was put on a final warning. I'm assuming Sarah is her co-worker. And lost her chance at a promotion. It turns out she's going through a messy divorce and is struggling financially. Now the whole office is called to me, saying I ruined a mother's career over some raw fish. It's raw fish, okay. And that I should have just talked to her privately first. Am I the a-hole here? I have two things to mention here. Do AirTags, do they have that accuracy? I've never really used them, but I don't think they can tell you where they are if the distance is only like tens of feet away. Honestly, if I was in your position, I wouldn't do it. If someone ate my food and... Well, it really depends if it keeps happening. Like, I presume it might be a little bit frustrating if it has happened like tens of times. Like if I'm hungry and there is no food that I bought, I would be pretty frustrated about it. But you should have just talked to her, really. Since you know it's her, you could have just talked to her and not went to the HR. I don't know why HR was that intense, She lost the chance at a promotion because she ate some food from a refrigerator. It wasn't even locked or anything. Are you the a-hole? Honestly, no comment. I don't know. My name is James, 42 years old. In 2003, I was 20 years old and filled with a crazy, blinding sense of purpose. I grew up in a small town where the flag wasn't just a fabric, it was a moral compass. When the drums of war started beating for Iraq, I didn't just walk to the recruitment office, I ran. The integrity of the mission seemed sound. We were told that we were told there were weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. We were told about a dictator with his finger on a chemical trigger. I believed I was a part of a global surgical strike to save humanity from a dark and imminent threat. I was ready to be the hero. When we crossed the border from Kuwait, the adrenaline was high. I was a combat engineer, trained to find the very things that were supposed to justify our presence. We swept bunkers, we raided industrial sites, and we interrogated scientists. But the further we pushed into the desert, the more the mission's purpose began to crumble. Every high-value site we investigated turned out to be a fertilizer plant, a flour mill, or an empty warehouse covered in decades of bird droppings. There were no hidden nukes. There were no vats of nerve gas. There was only a lot of sand and a lot of confused, terrified civilians. By my second tour in 2005, the WMD narrative had quietly vanished from the briefings. It was replaced by nation building and stability operations, but the reality on the ground was evil. I started noticing who was actually benefiting from our reconstruction. It wasn't the local Iraqis, it was the contractors, men in clean khakis and polo shirts from companies like Halliburton and KBR. I spent my days guarding oil pipelines and refinery equipment, while the city of Fallujah didn't even have clean water. I realized I wasn't a soldier for justice. I was a security guard for a multi-billion-dollar resource extraction project. The darkest moment came during a night raid in a small village near Tikrit. We kicked in the door of a home based on intelligence that proved to be a lie. We kicked in the door of a home based on intelligence that proved to be a lie. I remember looking at the face of a father holding his two young daughters. He didn't look like a terrorist. He looked like me. He looked like every man I knew back home who just wanted to protect his house. In that moment, the hero mask shattered. I wasn't there to stop a tyrant. I was the invader. I was the one bringing the crazy violence to a family that had done nothing to me. I was the aggressor, and my rifle was just a tool to ensure that the ones in charge could maintain their grip on the region's energy wealth. I began to see the war as a giant shell game. The government was spending the lives of 20-year-olds like currency, and that currency was being deposited into the accounts of defense contractors and oil tycoons. We were told we were fighting for democracy, but we were actually building the infrastructure for a corporate takeover. Every life lost, American or Iraqi, was just a line to them in a ledger of someone's quarterly earnings report. The realization was evil. It made the air in my lungs feel heavy, like I was breathing in lead. I came in 2007, but the James who left in 2003 didn't survive. I saw the flags in my hometown and felt a dark sense of betrayal. People thanked me for my service, but I wanted to apologize to them for being part of a scam. I had been trained to build bridges and clear paths, but all I had done was help build a monument to greed. I developed a twisted sense of irony. I went to find WMDs and found that the most dangerous weapon of mass destruction was the lie that sent us here in the first place. Today I work as a civil engineer. I build things that actually save people. Water systems, parks, schools. I don't follow directives anymore. I follow my own moral compass. I don't go to parades. I don't wear the old uniform. I spend my time helping other veterans who realize the same crazy truth I did. We were the support for a building that was never meant to house the truth. You were just the labor. Am I the a-hole for dumping my girlfriend because she made a test Instagram story and I failed? I, 23M, broke up with my girlfriend of 1 year yesterday because I'm apparently supposed to treat her Instagram like a job interview. She posted a black screen to her story with the caption, "Some people really let you down." No context, no explanation, just that line. So I ignored it, because I'm not a psychic and I'm not going to play mind games. I assumed it was about one of her friends or just her being passive-aggressive about her job as a waitress. Well, apparently, that was a test. She told me I failed because I didn't message her right away asking what was wrong. She said it showed I don't care enough to inquire about it. I told her I don't check Instagram every 5 minutes, and if she has a problem with me, she should act like an adult and talk to me instead of fishing for attention through vague stories. She said I was being cold and emotionally unavailable. I said she was being manipulative and immature. She cried. I packed my stuff. She's still messaging me, telling me I'm heartless for leaving over one small thing. But it's not one small thing. It's the million little red flags I have ignored for too long. The tests, the mood swings, the social media drama. I'm not dating a puzzle I have to solve daily just to avoid a tantrum. I want peace, not stories written in invisible ink that I'm expected to decode while she sits there with her arms crossed, waiting to see if I love her enough to notice. It's finished. What a weight gone off my chest. Okay, lots of things to unpack here. We'll start with the first thing. This whole premise of tests, mind games. I hate that. Personally speaking, I hate mind games, tests, puzzles. I hate that stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. As I was reading, when you said that you saw the story and then you ignored it, and then when she asked you, you said that I'm not, you said I don't check Instagram every 5 minutes. But here's the thing, you already saw it. So when I read that far, I was like, maybe it's, partly your issue. But then you said it's not that thing, it's a million little red flags that I have ignored for too long. The tests, the mood swings, the social media drama. So obviously you know your girlfriend more than me, you know your relationship more than me. The only thing I would say here is that if you play mind games and puzzles and tests all the time, obviously there's a limit. And some guys don't have limits for that. It could be just one strike and go. But my advice to both parties, by the way, to men and to women, don't play games, don't play tests, don't play puzzles. If you have something to say, say it. Use your words, Use your words and your ideas and your thoughts. Yeah, it's not a video game, it's not some novel you read, it's not a film. This is real life, it's plain and simple. My name is Julian, 19M. My father, David, used to be the most reliable man I knew. He was a mechanical engineer, a man who lived by the laws and numbers. He was calm, predictable, and present. 6 months ago, David died. He's still walking and talking, but the man who raised me is gone. In his place, there is this emotionally weak person, fueled by cocaine. It started with late nights at the office, in a sudden, strange burst of productivity. He was 50 years old and suddenly had the energy of a 20-year-old. He was talkative, obsessively so. He would sit at the dinner table and monologue for 40 minutes about business ideas that made no sense. His eyes wide and unblinking, his foot tapping a rhythm against the floor that sounded like a ticking bomb. If you ever lived with a coke addict, you'd know the sound of the sniff. It's a specific, sharp inhalation that my dad started doing every 10 minutes. He claimed it was sinus issues from the office AC. But then the physical signs became undeniable. The weight loss was scary. He dropped 30 pounds or 35 pounds in 2 months. His skin took on a grey, waxy sheen. And then there were the clatter sessions. I would basically hear him in the master bedroom at 2 a.m. with the sound of a credit card scraping against a glass vanity top. I googled about cocaine. It's a vasoconstrictor. It makes the heart scream while it narrows the vessels. My dad's pulse was always visible in his neck. A jagged beat that looked like it was trying to escape his skin. Cocaine is not a cheap habit. It's an elite fire that burns through cash. My mom, Delilah, is a school teacher. She handles the groceries, the cheap stuff, but Dad handled the big accounts. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the floor of the home office, surrounded by bank statements. She wasn't crying or anything. She was in shock. $20,000 were gone from their savings. In 3 months. He hadn't just spent the cash, he'd taken out a second mortgage on the house we had lived in since I was 5. He'd invested it, he claimed, but there were no stocks. There was only the white powder and the paranoid energy of a man who thought he was a genius while he was bankrupting his family. As the addiction deepened, the genius phase turned into a paranoid phase, a paranoia phase. Dad started checking the windows every time a car drove past. He became convinced the neighbors were reporting his business ideas to the firm. He stopped going to work completely. He'd stay up for 72 hours straight, pacing the hallway with a flashlight, looking for wires he thought were hidden in the crown molding. My little sister, Jenny, 14, started sleeping in my room with a chair pushed against the door. Not because Dad was violent, but he was just unpredictable. He would burst into her room at 4 a.m. to explain why the government was manipulating the local power grid. The end of the family of 4 happened on a Tuesday. Mom confronted him about the mortgage. She held the papers in front of his face. Dad didn't apologize. He didn't break down. He went into a stimulant rage. He screamed that she was small-minded, that she was holding back his greatness. He pushed her, not hard, but enough to knock her into the dining room table. The sound of her hitting the wood was the final straw. I stepped between them. I looked at him. White crust on his nostrils, blown out pupils, and just a crazy stare in his eyes. I realized I didn't love him in that moment. I felt nothing but a cold disgust towards him. Mom took Jenny and moved into an apartment across town the next day. I stayed for a week to try and save the house. But you can't save a house that's already been sold to a dealer. I walked through the rooms. The forever home was empty. Dad had sold the TV, the microwave, even my old PlayStation 3. He was sitting on the floor of the living room, staring at a blank wall. "They're coming for the car, Julian," he shouted at me. "But it's fine. I've got a new deal. I'm going to triple the money by Friday." I just left him there. He's currently living in a motel on the edge of the city. Mom is filing for divorce. Jenny is in therapy, trying to understand why her hero turned into a monster who stole her college fund. I visit him sometimes, but I don't stay long. He talks at 100 miles per hour, but he never really says anything. People think that cocaine makes you a party animal. It doesn't. It makes you a vacuum. It sucks the light, the money, and the love of every room you enter, till there is nothing left of you but memories.